want to welcome you, Marcy Jackson, to She Speaks podcast. I'm honored to have you. I was so honored to meet you at an event, and I began to follow you, and I saw I saw on Facebook your post about how you've been sick and you were diagnosed with four brain tumors. Is that correct? Oh,
Correct.
yeah. Well, just tell us a little bit about yourself, first of all.
Okay. My name is Marcy Jackson. I'm a married mother of two boys.
Yeah.
I'm the proud owner of Indi-blue Boutique, located here in Houston. Fashion is my passion. It's all I've ever done. Um, this is my third boutique. I had one 20 years ago. For 7 years, I was named the best plus size boutique in Houston by
Wow.
CBS. So it's all I've ever done. I just love the fact of dressing women and making them feel beautiful.
Yeah.
This is my second go around in marriage. My first husband passed.
Uh,
And now I'm married to a wonderful guy.
oh, wow. Okay. Well, you know what? There is a lot in between there.
Yes,
And
it is.
so we're gonna be talking a little bit about that. First of all, how did you come up with what was your inspiration for Indigo Blue title, the title?
I just loved it. It was catchy.
Yeah.
You only got a second to grab someone's attention. So I'm like, you know what? I love denim. I love indigo. So me and my husband just came up with the name. We said, okay, that's it, Indigo Blue.
I love it. I love it. And so tell us, let's walk back to when you had the horrible diagnosis that you had four brain tumors.
Yes.
How did you discover that?
I'm a relatively healthy person. I ran track for 8 years.
Hmm.
I'm in the gym 3 or 4 times a week. So when I got this headache, I knew it was different. It made me feel sick to the stomach
Oh,
and made my eyes feel low. So my son at the time said, Mom, do you want me to call dad? I said, yes. So when my husband came, he took me to the urgent care, which was right around the corner.
wow.
I didn't even get out the car good to where I just started vomiting, blah, blah, blah. But when I saw the doctor, he said, we don't have a person here to do CAT scans, but we're going to call in someone. And when he did, he came back and said, I never forget these words, we have bad news.
Yeah.
And I said, what's the bad news? He said, you have four brain tumors. You have three in the back of your head, you have one over your left eye, and you need to
Hmm.
see a brain surgeon today.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I was in the hospital 50 days.
How had you had headaches before this
Nope,
incident?
nope,
Mm.
nope. Healthy as a horse. Never
Wow.
been sick.
Uh,
Never been in the hospital other than birthing my children.
mm,
So of course it was a shock to me and my husband and everyone else. They were
mm.
throwing so much at me, trying to figure out like what were these tumors until it until I went into a psychotic episode to where they had to put me in a straitjacket. They had to call in people to restrain me. I was threatening to jump out the window. I was threatening to bite people, scratch people because all the medications they were giving me. Um, they removed three brain tumors back here, but they kept this one over my left eye because it was too big to take out.
Mhm.
Um, Sent me home with a nurse with the liquid chemo, maybe for about 4 weeks. After those 4 weeks, I went to get an MRI and I knew I didn't feel well. I just felt chills. And my husband said, do you want to go to the emergency room? I said, I think I need to. He said,
Okay.
I don't remember anything. He said, as soon as I stepped across those doors, he saw my eyes going into the back of my head. And he said, Nurse, I think my wife is having a stroke. They said, no, she's having a grand mal seizure. Look at the blood coming out of her mouth because I had bit my tongue. So that was another episode of I was diagnosed with meningitis, sepsis. My entire body was infected. This was worse than the first episode with the brain tumors because I was near death.
So when you first went into when your husband took you to the urgent care, they transferred you to a hospital, a different
Yes,
hospital.
They
Mm-hmm.
took me by ambulance to Park Plaza. I think
Oh,
it's called HCA now, but took me to Park Plaza
mhm.
and just began all the testing, trying to figure out what was going on. It took them about a week and a half for me to have surgery. Um, when I had surgery, like I said, they took the three in the back, but they left one over my eye.
Wow. And so when you talk about these psychotic episodes, was this a separate incident that happened while you were in the hospital?
It, yeah, it was all while I was in the hospital because the first 7 days they were giving me every drug known to man because they couldn't figure out what type of tumors they were. So
Wow.
it took me into, I mean, la la land. And as soon as the doctor saw what was going on, he knew exactly what to give me to bring me out of it.
Wow. So you were having these psychotic episodes all in the midst right before they even figured out what was going on with you.
Yes, yes.
Wow. Do you know what kind of tumors they were?
I can't even remember, and I don't want to remember.
Okay.
I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't sleep. Like I couldn't sleep. I think I stayed up like 4 or 5 days consecutively. So they were giving me sleeping pills,
Hmm.
anxiety pills. I mean, just everything under the sun, and it just sent me into a tailspin. But as
Yeah.
fast as it happened, the doctor knew exactly what to give me for it to dissipate. So,
Okay. Okay. And so they did leave one tumor
hmm hmm
that's there, that's still there. Is that bothering you still? Is it?
no, I have an MRI every 3 to 6 months. I have an MRI just to make sure that I mean, it has reduced in size, but still, they just want to follow. I just have an MRI every 3 to 6 months just to make sure that nothing happens from it.
Uh-huh. Oh, wow. Wow.
God
Um,
is good. God is good. Yes, He is.
God is good and he gets the glory. And but you
Yes,
were
He
in the hospital for, you say, 50 days.
Yes,
Wow.
yes.
What was that like for you?
Awful. Awful. I mean, awful.
Mm-hmm.
After a certain amount of days, you just get claustrophobic. You just want to get out of there. But
Yeah.
my husband used
Mhm.
to come and sneak me out the hospital and just ride me around the block and bring me back.
Oh, wow. So yeah, so he was very supportive of you
Yes,
throughout the entire stay
yes,
in the hospital, helping you
yes.
with you're bathing, you're eating and that kind of thing. Were you paralyzed at all or?
No, no, not at all. That was just his temperament. That was the type of man he was. Very
Hmm.
caring, very nurturing. He was there like clockwork at 5 o'clock in the morning to get me
Hmm.
up, help me take a shower. He
Yeah.
wouldn't allow them to change my sheets. Then he came back in the afternoon to make sure I had dinner, walk me
Uh,
around the hospital. I mean, just amazing, just amazing.
that is amazing to have that kind of relationship
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that he was there for you.
Yes, he was.
Yeah. And what about your family support as far as your two sons, they were helping you as well?
Yes. When
That's
they sent me home with an IV in my neck. So
mhm.
that had to be dispensed like 4 or 5 times a day. So my son, my husband, they used to take turns giving me my medicine through, via IV.
Uh-huh.
Um, and after that was over,
Uh-huh.
when everything else happened with my husband.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay. So also your story continues with your husband who was taking care of you at the time did not realize that he was also terminally ill.
Yep,
Wow.
yep,
He didn't,
yeah.
and you didn't know about that.
He didn't know, and I didn't know. And people say he knew. No, he was a diabetic when I
Uh-huh.
met him.
Oh,
So I made sure that I made all doctor's appointments. I made sure I went to all doctor's appointments. So he did not know. Now that I know the symptoms of it, he
mm-hmm.
had all the he had all the symptoms. They was just misdiagnosing it. But see that's the way God aligned it. He wanted it to happen the way it happened.
Yeah. So what was his
Pan,
diagnosis?
pan, pancreatic cancer.
Oh, wow.
Hmm.
Sorry to hear about that.
Thank you.
And so, but he was taking care of you. But when did you find out that he was ill? Had you recovered fully before you found out that he was sick?
I recovered. He wouldn't allow me to work, not even one day.
Yeah.
After I got well, he said, "No, you're not working. You're going to stay at home." So I started noticing like a rattle on his chest, and I kept saying, "That's not normal." So when I called the doctor, he said, "Oh, he's a diabetic. His kidneys are probably acting up and is producing fluid."
Mm-hmm.
After 4 or 5 days, I said, "No, something's wrong." I packed his bags. I called the
Yeah.
doctor and I said, "We're going to the hospital and you're going to
Yeah.
admit him this time." I never forget that was on a Sunday.
Uh-huh.
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're laughing, talking, taking pictures, taking selfies outside. But that Thursday, the doctor said, "We're going to take him to the back. We're going to do an exploratory. We're going to do like put a tube down his throat." He came
Mm-hmm.
back without him. And when he came back without him, I said, "Where is Anthony?" He said, "He's in a coma." And I'm like,
Wow.
I just was talking to him. What do you mean?"
Mm-hmm.
He said, to save his life, we put him in a medically induced coma. One side of his lungs were completely gone, as far as full of fluid, and the other was half full. He said, "I don't know for sure, but I think he has lung cancer." He said, "But don't worry, we're going to get him healthy." Well, my husband never recovered. I never got a chance to tell him he had a pancreatic cancer. But after a couple of days, the doctor came back and said, "I think it came from somewhere else." And I said, Where? He said, "His
Uh-huh.
pancreas." He said, "So I'm giving him like 3 to 6 months." But he died in 3 weeks.
Wow. That
If
is
I, if I
so
tell you, Miss
mm,
Evans, those 3 weeks,
mm,
pure hell, pure agony. I can't even describe in words what happened in those 3 weeks. Now, all these years, my husband walked around with pancreatic cancer because he just didn't get pancreatic cancer and die in a day. So all these years, he suffered with back pain. They kept saying, "Oh, this is diabetes," or he injured himself. Those
mm.
3 weeks is like something told him, "I have pancreatic cancer and now I'm getting ready to suffer." He growled like an animal day and night. And
That,
I just said, "You know what, God, I'm just to block out the whole world. No visitors. It's just me and him." And that was
mm-hmm.
my time to grieve. That was my time to cry out to God. That was
Mm-hmm.
my time just to let it go. And I just couldn't that was just me and him. I couldn't let nobody else interfere. Um, they tried to bring him out of the coma.
Mm-hmm.
He just was crying, "I want my mama. I want my mama." I said, "I'm here." He said, "No, I want my mama." His mama's deceased.
Wow. Do you think he could see his mother some kind of way or in the spirit or anything? Do you think?
Mhm.
Oh,
My,
okay.
my my deceased husband was a deacon. I always thought he was going to be a preacher.
Mm-hmm.
From the day I met him to the day he died, a very spiritual man. He
Okay.
kept telling me a year before, "Are
Mm-hmm.
you playing?" I kept saying, like, "Why are you asking me that?" He said, "God revealed to me something's going to happen." I'm like, "What is going to happen?" He said, "You
Mm-hmm.
better take heed. Something's going to happen." And I returned. A year later, he died. So he was prophesizing, telling me what was getting ready to happen. Um, he didn't know exactly what. And we went on a cruise every year for 18 years. That 19th cruise, which was in March, we would start preparing in January. He said, "I'm not going." I'm like, "What?" And he was the organizer of the cruise, the t-shirts and all kind of stuff. He said, "I'm not going." I
Wow.
said, "Why?" He said, "I don't want to go." But he knew he died 2 months later.
That must have been a shock, and I can't even imagine what you were going through and his family.
I think the shock is how it happened. But remember, he prophesied. So after I got over that, I had to go to grief counseling, but I understood that he was in my life for a season. You know how some people say that person was in your life for a reason and a season? This
Mm-hmm.
man was in my life for a reason. That was his second bout with death. The first bout, a year after we got married, he was in a coma for months because his spleen ruptured.
Wow. Oh
And
my goodness.
when his spleen ruptured, it called it. What is it called? Multi-system organ failure. So every organ
Hmm.
failed. That time, I said he's dead because he was in a coma. He was every body organ failed. Failed,
Hmm.
and he was in a coma. Do you know when he woke up from that coma? Guess what he called himself? He said,
What?
"My name is Lazarus."
Why did he call? Oh, yeah, yeah, because he died. He pretty much was brain dead.
Mhm. Yeah.
Did he have an experience that he would share with you during the
Yes.
time when he was in
He
a
said he
coma?
went down. He went down this long tunnel, and his mom and dad was on the end. They told him, "Go back. It's not your time."
Oh, okay, okay. That was his experience.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Mm-hmm.
that is so interesting. You know, people
So,
have experiences like that all the time,
mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
you just don't hear about them a lot of times.
Nope.
Just don't hear
Nope.
talking about them
Nope.
and everything.
And I never forget when he woke up. I was at work. Now I left there that morning. He had a
Mm,
tube in his throat. He was in a coma. The phone rang, and I said, "Hello." He said, "Marcy." I said, "Yes." He said, "This is Anthony." No, what kind of sick joke is this? I left there. He wasn't even awake. He
mhm.
woke up, and the first thing he did was tell them to get him a phone to call me out of a coma.
Wow.
Hmm.
Just when you'd given up, and
Yeah.
look at
Yeah.
God.
Yes. Yes.
That I tell you, the prayers of the righteous avail much.
Very much. He said he went through that not for himself, but
Hmm.
for others to see that God was still in the healing business.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I believe that.
Yes. Yes.
That is some testimony.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Wow. How did you navigate the grief process?
I think I held on to the fact that he was in my life for a reason. He
Mhm.
fulfilled his purpose as my husband. He loved me like Christ loved the church.
Wow.
His mission was complete, and it was time for him to go be with God. A
Yeah.
month before he died, he got up in church. And you know, me as a wife, I'm going behind him like, what is he getting ready to go do? Is he getting ready to go tell the church he wants to be a preacher or something? So he went to
Uh,
the altar. So I went up there and sit with him.
yeah.
He told the church, y'all know we want the best for our children.
Hmm.
My son just enlisted in the army. Now I can go be with God. All you heard was gasp. And of course, he died a couple months later.
Wow. Did you
Hmm.
ask him if he had seen anything or, you
So
know,
that's when he started telling me, "Are you praying? Are you praying? You better
oh,
get prayed up because something's getting ready to happen."
yeah, so it was during that time.
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
is something else.
Yeah.
Goodness. And so you all had a no, he also prophesied to you that you would be married again.
My son said, "Mom, do you remember what Daddy kept telling you about you won't be single long?" When he told me that, I was almost offended. What are you trying to say about me? And like, what are you saying? Like, where are you going to be? He said, God
Mhm.
revealed to me, if something happened to me, I'll give you 6 months. You'll be in another relationship. And I met my husband in 6 months.
That is something else. Wow.
Hmm.
How did you meet?
I was going in a restaurant. He was coming out. But
Uh,
one thing about my deceased husband, he
yeah,
was such a godly man until his funeral was down the street around the corner. He was loved by everybody. And
yeah,
I mean, loved. And when I had my first boutique, he
mhm,
quit his job
yeah.
to work the boutique Monday through Saturday, 9 to 6. It was him that ran the boutique. So when he passed, One of the
Mm.
models said, Miss Marcy, could I speak? She said, if anyone was dressed by Mr. A, they call him Mr. A, stand up. I mean, just at least 100 women.
What?
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So
beautiful.
when, on my wedding day to my new husband, someone inboxed me on Facebook. She said, I don't know you, but it's like I know you. And I'm like, how do you know me? She said, your
Yeah.
deceased husband, Anthony, talked about you all the time. And I just want you to know on your wedding day, he's looking down on you. I was like, oh,
Isn't that special?
yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah,
That is
yeah.
so amazing.
He
Mm,
gave me something that I think some women would never experience. How a man truly loves a woman.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He lived it, he breathed it, he walked it every
Mm,
day, and he never wavered, never wavered.
wow. Um, I think that's what they call your soulmate, right?
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
This
Yeah,
is an amazing, amazing story. And to look at you now, you are thriving, you're
thank
breathing,
you.
walking, you're married again, you started your life again. And
Yes,
with the help of the Lord and by the grace of God,
by the grace of God.
yes,
Because
yes,
I could have been dead and sleeping in my grave.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. Because what happened to you was it was just all of a sudden, so sudden seemingly, even though it was going on in the background to your unbeknownst, but
It was all planned. All of it was planned. It was
mhm,
planned for me to be able to give a testimony on how life obstacles, near death experiences,
mhm,
grief, you still can come out on the other side, you know?
yeah. So what would you say to widows who just recently lost their husbands?
No one can tell you how to grieve. There's
Mm,
so many stages of grief. It's a normal process to grieve, but
yeah.
there's a certain way to grieve. And I
Mhm,
had to learn that because I went to grief counseling.
yeah.
But there's a light at the end of the rainbow. There's
Yeah.
going to be laughter, there's going to be joy. Some people choose not to remarry, which is fine, but
Hmm.
just so women know, you still can live your life to the fullest after grief. That's not the end of the story.
Oh, amen. Amen. That's a great message. That's a
Hmm.
great message. And what would you say to kids or children who have lost their fathers?
My son, my husband, right, even though it was my son, my biological son, it wasn't his, he raised him.
Wow.
And when he passed, he had just lost his biological father in 1 year's time.
Oh,
So
wow.
both of the men of his life passed, and I'm so thankful that he knew God. That's how
Mm-hmm.
we raised them. So
Mm-hmm.
he knew what it was like to have that great man in his life, and that it was God's will that all this happened. I
Mm-hmm.
thank God he's thriving now. I mean, he's a good kid. He's a really good kid. But to all of the kids, especially boys, when they lose their father,
Yeah.
just know, just take the good things that you can remember about your father.
Mm-hmm.
All the teachings that he taught you, use it in your daily life. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you will never have another father figure. A father figure can be someone at church, it could be your pastor, it could be your uncles.
Mm-hmm.
So just always take what your father instilled and use it in your daily life.
That's a great message. Is there anything else you would like to add before we close the conversation?
I just thank you for this platform because my story can help others. My story can tell women how you can prevail,
Mm-hmm.
even any situation. It doesn't have to be grief, it doesn't have to be death. It can be any situation that God throws at you,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that there's a higher power and knowing that trouble don't last always. And how they say weeping can endure for a moment, but joy comes in the morning.
Yes, yes. And so you are living your blessed life, telling your story, thriving, and it's all because of the grace of God. Thank you so much,
You're
Marcy,
welcome.
for sharing your story. When I first heard your story, I was like, this is going to bless so many people. And so I just had to have you on. I'm thankful that
Thank
you're
you so much.
the first guest here as She Speaks with Dr. Cindy.